So in this video we're going to be looking at the Magplar. Now at first I was struggling with this class with hybridization. I couldn't really hit any decent numbers, but I've had a bit of a play around and with the help of Josh D from the Swaffle Squad Discord managed to get a setup that actually works pretty well. So we're going to be using the majority mag skills with 2 stamp skills in there to hit over 115k DPS, and this is the setup that I use in content as well as the dummy, so it is going to be able to be useful in all 4-man and 12-man content wherever you might want to use the Magplar. So we'll look at the rotation, the skills and everything you need to get set up to do some big damage with our jabby boy. So let's have a look at the base setup. So we are a Magplar, so all 64 of our attribute points are going to be into Magicka. We are using Ghastly Eyeball Food and a Thief Munderstone to maximise our crit, to maximise our mag recovery, because sustain on the plot is terrible. We are a Dark Elf. Dark Elf is probably my favourite class just because it's never out of the top 3. The top 1 might change, but save your race change tokens between Half and Khajiit like we have the last few patches, just stick to Dark Elf. We're using the kinras on the front bar, so we've got a Nirn honed main hand and a charged offhand with poison and flame enchants, and the maelstrom greatsword Backbar infused with the weapon damage enchant on it to keep up our berserker. We're using Relequens. You don't need perfected, normal is just fine because all perfected gives you as an extra line of stand, which we don't use anyway, but it just makes it a bit easier to keep up carve and stampede, I suppose. That's all divine with Magicka enchants, so that does mean we're going to be running 6 medium, 1 light, because we've got the Harpooner's Wading Kill and we're running valkyn, skorias, epaulets for our penetration. In content, if you've got that owl caution that in group, you can swap this for slimecraw for a bit more crit chance and therefore a bit more damage. But in 4-man or on the dummy, you're going to want that penetration from the valkyn skoria sort of setup to make sure that you're not underpenning. We've then got kinras jewellery, all bloodthirsty, all with spell damage and chance on it as well to maximise that push. So let's take a look at the skills that we're going to be using. So these are skills that are using the 115k pass that you'll see at the end of this video, and also the ones that just run in general content. So on the front bar we've got Radiant Oppression. This is going to be our execute skill. It's going to replace our spam bubble at around about 19-20% of the target's health, because that's when it starts to scale with that 500% more damage to do more damage than jabs, because with it scaling from 150% health, it's not that good straight away. Inner Light is just here for our passive max Magicka, and Purifying Light is here to proc our passive from our Templar to provide the group minus sorcery, and it also sort of copies damage that we apply to the enemies, because there's a good burst every few seconds when it pops. Bob Trap is our source of mana force, so we want to keep this up at all times, and also gives us our Fighter's Guild passives extra spell damage, so we want to make sure it doesn't drop off. And Puncher and Sweeps is our spammable, probably the best spammable in the game. So OP, how this hasn't been nerfed I'll never know. It's got good cleave, good area of effect, and it heals you when you do it, and it gives good damage. Has got a bit of a long cast time, so it can be quite tricky to weave, so make sure you're practicing getting the light attacks in between each jab, so we're not slowing down and we're getting the maximum amount of jabs in our rotation that we want. Flawless Dawnbreaker is here literally for the passives and in case you get to slap one down and execute. So on the back bar we've got Stampede. We're using this to keep up the bleed from our Maelstrom Greatsword proc, as well as the Berserker enchant that we've got on there to buff our spell damage. Carve is here for our bleed. Now this has been changed, so stacks don't add damage, they add duration. So we want to get this 2-3 stacks as quickly as we can so we can forget about it. Right up to it needs reapplying, so we get more time on our front bar jabbing away. Blazing Spear is here for the Adric Spear passive for the critical damage on the back bar, and when we're in execute and we're not casting jabs anymore, every 4th proc of this will give us the Burning Light proc to make sure that we get that extra bit of free damage. Channel Focus, slap this down, stand in it, gives us major resolve and also our Magicka back, and then Solar Barrage, bit of a crap dot, but it gives us Empower, which is handy because we're not really keeping up any major skills to do that. Shooting Star is our ultimate. Cast is pretty much the whole way through the rotation, because if you can get the target to stay in it for the entire time, the dot it provides is some really good damage. So this is the one we're going to use throughout rather than Dawnbreaker. So let's take a look at the passives that make the Templar work, basically. So we've got the Piercing Spear and the Adric Spear one, which gives us our critical damage. This is why we have jabs on the front bar and Blazing Spear on the back bar to make sure we've always got this 10% critical damage buff up. And it's also the reason we don't need to use Backstabber. Minor Protection when we're jabbing, nice, makes us a bit less dead all the time, always a bonus. Burning Light, so every time we do 4 ticks of damage in quick succession, we get some extra free magic damage. So this is every time we do jabs or when we execute the 4 ticks of Blazing Spear while we're doing Radiant Oppression. And then extra bit of weapon and spell damage and a bit of physical and spell resistance. Lovely, lovely stuff. So Enduring Rage just adds duration to our abilities such as Solar Barrage, Purifying Light, Radiant Oppression, always nice to have. Casting one of these gives us ultimate, means we can drop more shooting stars. And Illuminate is how we give the group minor sorcery, which is the utility that you'd have a Templar for in the first place. So when we're casting each of these, we're giving the group minor sorcery. And reducing the cost is always nice because Templar sustain is AIDS. All these you only need if you're running heals basically, but it is nice to be able to resurrect people quicker if you're in a group for carpets that like to be big dead, because they'll get back up quicker and they'll get back up with more health as well. So in 2-hand we want heavy weapons to get the bonus of the greatsword and balance blade to reduce the cost of stampede and carve. In dual wield we definitely want dual wield expert for the weapon and spell damage, and we want twin blade and blunt as well for the bonus for having daggers. All the light armor passives. In medium you want dexterity, windwalker and agility for the damage and sustain benefits. All your fighters guild passives, all the mages guild passives except for the one about cost, just because it's nice to get them when you cast meteor, you know, that little bit of extra mag on your Backbar, a couple of seconds of empower in case solar barrage goes down or something like that. Worth having, not super dead necessary. The improving the duration is nice though for your shooting start. Both your passives for Undaunted, obviously all your racial passives and your medicinal use passive as well to keep your pots up. So next up, let's have a look at the champion points. So with these, obviously some of them are going to be personal preference, but the blue ones are the major focus. For green, I'd always recommend having Rationer and Liquid Efficiency if you can. Clearly I'm a hypocrite and don't have it here, but just to reduce your food and pot bill so you don't have to keep buying them, it's always nice. In the blue tree, we're going to have all 4 in the top right corner. So Master at Arms, Deadly Aim, Biting Hour and Thaumaturge. We don't need Backstabber because also we get the crit damage bonus of being a Templar, and we're in 6 medium, so that would be overkill with the crit cap. In red, you don't need Sustain by Suffer anymore because they've nerfed the Vampire Bite. So have Rejuvenation, and it's all personal preference what you want for the content, whether it's Fortified, Balance, Vitality and things like that. For the rotation, we're going to pre-buff with Channeled Rune, Trap and Meteor. We're then going to cast all our Backbar dots as you can see here, and Power of the Light when we get to the front bar. From here, we're going to be keeping everything up dynamically, so when we're not recasting something, we are jabbing. Making sure to, as you can see here, to prioritise keeping the carve stacks up. And every time Power of the Light pops, just recasting it like so. So you'll replace jab with anything that needs reapplying, and just work your way through it, making sure you never cast more than 3 skills on your Backbar, because if you do, you'll lose your kinras stack. At 19-20%, you're going to swap jabs for Radiant Oppression. From 15%, you're only going to keep up Stampede, Carve, Shards, Trap and Radiant Oppression. So you're going to drop Power of the Light and drop Solar Barrage. And this is the last 3 minutes of the 115k pass. So we've got the Magplar. Only 3 minutes because my Xbox is shit and only records 3 minutes at a time. Worth noting when we said that we're keeping everything up dynamically, that the less you can cast channel focus and swap it with a jab and still sustain, obviously the more damage you're going to do. But you are in 6 medium running Magplar, which has always been pretty shocking for sustain. So your mag will start to run out quick fast if you don't keep it up at least a couple of times in the rotation. So just something to bear in mind. And that is the Magplar setup for this Sun in Time patch. Like I say, big thanks to Josh D for helping me with this setup here. He himself hit like 100 million or something, whatever it was on it. So there is more DPS than the 115k that I hit, but I lack thumbs. So please do let me know if you managed to beat that score with this setup in the comments. I'd really be interested to know what people are hitting. And if you found this useful, please do consider liking and subscribing. That would be turbo awesome. Thank you very much, and until the next video.